At 2:16 in the morning, a Cascadia sits crooked under the sodium lights behind a truck stop in Amarillo. The dash is glowing amber. Check engine after treatment derate. The driver is outside with his phone in one hand and a tow quote in the other. He thought the new parts would help. More pull on hills, better mileage, less downtime. Instead, the truck is headed to a dealer, the load is late, and the first estimate is $15,000 before anyone has even found the real problem. That is what kill your engine means here, not always a dramatic explosion. Sometimes it is heat, bad data, warranty flags, forced regions, sensor fights, and one expensive failure stacked on another. Some Cascadia upgrades earn their keep. Others turn a tightly integrated truck into a rolling diagnostic argument. And the riskiest one is sold as effortless performance because the first twist is that the best Cascadia mods usually are not the flashy ones. I look at a Freightliner Cascadia differently than a Chrome catalog does. I care about mods that lower cost per mile, not just mods that look good online, because a Cascadia is not a blank canvas. It is an integrated system, the Aero package, Detroit engine, Detroit 12-speed automated manual or manual transmission, emissions after treatment, electronics, sensors, diagnostics, and driver environment are all talking to each other every mile. Help that system, and the truck can burn less fuel, protect tires, reduce idle time, and keep the driver sharper. Fight that system, and one upgrade can create bad temperatures, confused sensors, failed regions, warranty problems, and hours of diagnostic labor. So this is not a fantasy list. We are going through 13 mods worth considering, and 5 that can create costly failures without getting into illegal or unsafe how-to details. The core opinion is simple. I would rather reduce waste every mile than chase a number from an advertisement. So we start with the least glamorous place on the truck, the air hitting the wheels. Aerodynamic wheel covers attack the dirty air around rotating wheels. On a highway Cascadia that matters because the cab, bumper, fairings, and side skirts are already trying to keep air attached and moving cleanly. The win is fuel economy, the cost is hassle. Covers can slow inspections, get damaged, trap grime, and annoy a driver who checks wheel ends often. I would buy them for mostly highway routes, not rough, stop-and-go work, but wheel covers do less if the cab is leaking air like a parachute. Start with the factory Aero before you buy anything shiny. Cab extenders, rubber seals, and sleeper-to-trailer gap panels exist because the Cascadia is built to control the low-pressure mess behind the cab. Crack an extender, lose a seal, or run misaligned panels, and that air starts tumbling. Fuel economy drops. Wind noise climbs, the trade-off is cost. These parts get hit, bent, and brittle, but restoring them gives back efficiency the truck already had, and the same logic continues underneath the truck. Under the cab, chassis fairings keep the air from slamming into tanks, steps, brackets, and cross members like a gravel storm. On a Cascadia, they work only when the pieces are intact. Missing fasteners, cracked mounts, or one loose lower panel can turn smooth airflow into drag, noise, and spray. You may still gain fuel economy, but you also inherit curb damage and harder service access. Inspect them before replacing them. But the roof is where a good Aero idea can become either brilliant or pointless. Roof Aero only pays when it matches the trailer behind you. A Cascadia pulling tall, dry vans needs the airflow to climb off the cab and meet the trailer cleanly. Set too low, the wind hits the trailer face like a wall. Set too high, you create separation and turbulence. For mixed trailers, flatbed work, or low-clearance routes, a fixed roof device can become expensive decoration. Measure the freight first. Now that the truck is cutting air better, the next fight is what touches the pavement. Low rolling resistance tires attack the next loss. Heat every mile, the tire flexes, squats, and rebounds. That flex burns diesel without moving the load. On steady highway runs, the right casing and tread can cut that waste and return real fuel economy. But fit matters. Heavy regional work, snow, wet docks, poor alignment, or the wrong retread plan can erase the gain. Match the tire to load, route, speed, climate, and maintenance, but even the best tire becomes a bad investment when pressure is ignored. Tire pressure monitoring is not a gadget, it is early warning. A Cascadia running soft tires burns more fuel because the casing flexes harder. That flex builds heat, chews the shoulders, weakens the tire, and can turn a slow leak into a roadside blowout. The trade-off is real. Sensors cost money, batteries die, calibration matters, and false alerts happen, but downtime is uglier than any sensor on a valve stem. Next is the mod that saves fuel while the truck is not moving at all. Parked HVAC is one of the few comfort mods that can pay you back while the truck sits still. A good battery-powered or auxiliary climate system keeps the sleeper livable without running the main engine all night. That means fewer idle hours, less fuel burned, less soot loading, and less wear counted against maintenance intervals. The catch is capacity and installation. Hot climates demand more battery. Cheap wiring creates problems fast if it helps a driver sleep and reduces idle time. I take that seriously. But comfort becomes a problem if the sleeper electrical system is hacked together. A proper inverter setup is not just a big box under the bunk. It is matched to the loads, fed by the right cable size, fused close to the batteries, grounded cleanly, and routed away from heat and sharp metal. Done right, it runs a fridge, microwave, charger, and small comforts without starving the Cascadia's electronics. Done wrong, it becomes voltage drop, melted insulation, random faults, and no start mornings. For some trucks, though, batteries alone are not the whole answer. An auxiliary power unit makes sense when the truck lives parked overnight. It can run heat, air conditioning, and hotel loads without stacking idle hours on the main engine. That means less fuel burned, fewer engine hours, and better sleeper comfort. But it is not free money. You still pay up front, carry extra weight, maintain another machine, and trust the installer. This is where I would run the math, honestly, instead of buying the idea emotionally. And if we are talking business, the next mod is about catching problems before they become invoices. Telematics is not just a fleet manager toy anymore. A good engine health setup can show fault codes, idle time, fuel trends, service intervals, battery voltage, coolant temperature, and after-treatment warnings before they turn into a tow bill. The bad version is noise, too many alerts, another subscription, and data nobody checks. The value is discipline. If the Cascadia is already talking, this mod makes sure you actually listen. But not every visibility upgrade is just about seeing more. Some can create legal trouble if done wrong. Visibility mods are worth it when they help the factory system, not fight it. Good upgrades are compliant, light-emitting diode headlamps, properly aimed fog lights, heated mirrors, clean marker lights, and a camera system wired through the correct circuits. Bad upgrades are blinding bulbs, sketchy light bars, hacked wiring, and anything that gives an inspector an easy violation. I like seeing better, but I do not like giving an inspector a reason to park the truck. The next category does not touch the engine at all, but it can change how long a driver lasts behind the wheel. A Cascadia seat is not a luxury part. It is suspension for the driver, a quality air ride seat, proper lumbar support, a real mattress, blackout curtains, storage bins and cab noise control, reduce fatigue hour by hour. Cheap cushions, cluttered sleepers, and rattling cabinets do the opposite. They steal sleep, tighten your back, and make small mistakes feel normal. A driver who sleeps better and hurts less makes better decisions. And that brings us to the most underrated mod of all, putting the truck back the way it was supposed to be. Factory Aero is not decoration. The bumper extensions, side fairings, hood seals, wheel covers, and cab extenders were designed to work as one shape. When one piece is cracked, missing, or zip-tied crooked, air does not just slip past, it tumbles, whistles, grabs spray, and costs fuel. Fixing that can beat a shiny aftermarket add-on. This is where I would spend money before almost any cosmetic upgrade. Now the story flips, because the next 5 mods do not reduce waste, they add risk. An emissions delete can look simple from the outside, fewer warnings, fewer regions, maybe a little more pull. But on a Cascadia, the engine, EGR, DPF, SCR, DAF system, sensors, and software are one managed system. Change one piece, and diagnostics can turn into guesswork. Fault codes stop meaning what they should mean. Warranty support gets harder. Resale gets uglier. There's also the legal side. In the United States, tampering with required emissions controls or making, selling, or installing defeat devices is prohibited under federal law. This is where I would leave the engineers alone. But deletes are not the only way owners get seduced by the promise of easy power. Then comes the tune. A mild factory-approved rating change is one thing. An aggressive, unvalidated file is different. It can raise cylinder pressure, exhaust heat, turbo speed, and torque through a driveline that was calibrated around specific limits. That extra pull feels great on an on-ramp, but the bill shows up in head gaskets, cooling strain, clutch wear, transmission stress, and after-treatment that now has to process more heat and soot than expected. Detroit engine, transmission, cooling, emissions, and diagnostics are not separate islands. They are one system. Free horsepower does not exist, and sometimes the performance pitch starts even earlier at the air filter. That air box is not just a plastic bucket with a filter in it. On a Cascadia, the intake path is shaped around airflow, filtration, sensors, water separation, and service intervals. A quality replacement filter can be fine. A hacked intake, loose seal, cheap cone filter, or missing restriction gauge is a different story. Now the turbo can ingest dust. The mass airflow or pressure readings can drift. The engine may fuel wrong, derate, smoke, or throw a check engine light that sends you chasing ghosts. The gain is usually a louder whoosh and a receipt. And what goes in is only half the story. What comes out can be just as dangerous. Exhaust changes are where cheap confidence gets expensive. The Cascadia exhaust is part of a controlled emission system. It manages heat, back pressure, sensor feedback, diesel particulate filter regeneration, and selective catalytic reduction dosing. Change the wrong section, move a sensor, create a leak or confuse temperature readings, and the truck stops trusting itself. Then come the symptoms. Region problems, fault codes, derates, failed inspections, Parts are placed in the wrong order because the data no longer makes sense. A better muffler or factory-approved repair is one thing. Fighting the aftertreatment system is another. Now we arrive at the mystery from the beginning, the little box promising effortless performance. That little plug-in module is the answer. It clips into the harness, hides near the firewall, and promises more power, better fuel economy, and no real trade-off. But many of these boxes do not truly recalibrate the whole truck. They may bend sensor signals, change operating assumptions, or trick the engine into working harder than the rest of the system expects. That matters because a Cascadia is not just an engine. It is an engine, transmission, cooling package, after-treatment system, and diagnostic network all making decisions from shared data. Feed it bad information, and the truck may run hotter, shift worse, diagnose poorly, or hand you a warranty fight when something fails. If a box promises power, economy, and no downside, I want proof, not advertising. So the real villain is not modification itself. It is modification without respect for the system, and that is the turn most owners miss. The Cascadia was never the enemy. The waste was air slipping off a bad trailer gap, a sleeper idling all night for heat, a driver guessing tire pressure by looking at sidewalls, a small coolant leak becoming a roadside tow because nobody saw the trend early enough. The good modifications attacked those leaks in the business. They reduced drag, idle time, fatigue, uncertainty, or maintenance spend. They made the truck easier to operate inside the envelope it was already built for. The bad ones did something different. They asked a tightly integrated machine to believe a lie. More fuel without enough cooling margin. More torque without the transmission strategy to manage it. Cleaner dashboard readings while the after-treatment system is quietly being pushed into a corner. That is why two upgrades can look similar on a receipt but behave completely differently on the road. One helps the factory system do its job with less waste. The other makes the system harder to trust, harder to diagnose, and harder to defend when the bill arrives. So the smartest owner is not the one who modifies the most, it is the one who knows where to help the truck and where to leave it alone. Now the entire list can be reduced to one decision rule. Here's the rule. If a modification helps the Cascadia waste less, see more, idle less, roll easier, or bring a tired factory part back to spec, it belongs on the short list. That is why the best upgrades were boring in the right way, Aero pieces that close gaps and calm the air. Low rolling resistance tires kept at the right pressure, idle reduction that stops the engine from running all night just to power a sleeper. Better monitoring, better lighting, better seating, better storage, and restored factory components that let the truck work like it was designed to work. Those mods do not ask the truck to become something else, they help it be a cleaner, safer, more efficient version of itself. The risky mods all shared the opposite pattern: deletes, aggressive tuning, poorly designed intakes, exhaust changes that disturb sensors or heat management, mystery plug-in modules that promise power without showing you what they are changing. That is the answer to the open question. The mod that looks like an upgrade, sounds like free money, and can turn a Cascadia into a diagnostic nightmare is the one that interferes with emissions, controls, sensors, tuning, or diagnostics while pretending there is no trade-off, because on a modern truck, there is always a system behind the part. So before you buy the next upgrade, do a simple walk around, find one missing or damaged aero piece, check one tire pressure problem, identify one place where idle time could be reduced, and pick one tempting mod you're going to research before money changes hands. Then drop a comment with the one Cascadia mod you think paid for itself the fastest, or the one you wish you had never installed. Thanks for watching. Drive safe, keep the truck honest, and help the machine where it wants to be helped.